Welcome to Island Living Today, a monthly speaker series where local experts share valuable insights to enhance your home ownership experience on Vancouver Island. This series is brought to you by top realtors on Vancouver Island. Connie Henschel, who brings 15 years of care and integrity to every client interaction, creating ideal matches between people and homes. Denise Hodgins, who specializes in the finest properties in the Mid-Island region, delivering exceptional service along the way. And Laura Healy, who's passionate about sharing her in-depth real estate knowledge and professional connections with her clients. Thank you for joining Island Living Today and being a part of our community.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to introduce our speaker for today's session. Rebeccah Stefina has been a friend and a client of mine for, I guess, about 2 or 3 years. And so I'm really honored to have you be available tonight. And I'm looking forward to telling our group a little bit more about you. So Rebeccah works with budget blinds, and she's here to talk all about window coverings and how they create style and function in every room. Rebeccah has been the sales manager with Budget Blinds for just over 6 years and with the company for 8 years. She comes from a design background in interior design. Not only is she super knowledgeable, but she's also a very kind and caring person. So when Rebeccah comes to do a consult, she really wants to hear what you have to say. So I've had the privilege of being with Rebeccah with my clients, and she really breaks down the steps because the industry is way more complex than one would think. So with prior experience in interior design, she's not only able to present all the knowledge of what her company has and the product lines she has, but also with a great knowledge of the design backgrounds, things you just might not think about. So Rebeccah is always eager to share her knowledge. And if you asked her, she'd let you know that her favorite window coverings will always be a timeless roller. Simple, but yet effective, right? She likes this because to her, drapery is all about, window coverings are all about layering. So she was born and raised on Vancouver Island, and she lives in the Oceanside area. So right in beautiful middle of Vancouver Island. And I'm really excited to have Rebeccah on the call today. Thank you, Rebeccah, for joining us and being part of Island Living Today.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
So Connie, you want to take it off and hit off a few questions and put Rebeccah on the hot seat and teach our group a ton of information all about window coverings?
For sure, will do. Happy to do that. We're also with Rebeccah is Ashley, and Ashley is the marketing manager, I believe, for Budget Blinds, and she's helping with the facilitation of everything in the background. And Rebeccah will say that she is very instrumental in what's going to happen. So without any further ado, I think she's got some slides here, and I am going to start asking our questions. So Rebeccah, I know that Budget Blinds offers free in-home consultations. Can you walk through what that looks like?
Yeah, so there's multiple different portals for you guys to contact us. You can give us a phone call. We've got a few different phone lines depending on your local area. We own the franchises from up in Cowichan Valley all the way down to Port Hardy, and we have a couple sales reps in each area. So we kind of direct you with the specific sales rep that is in that area or what we think is going to be the best fit for you. And we have our cars loaded with all our samples. And everybody will look at my car and see how many samples we have, because we literally bring the showroom to you. We carry multiple different suppliers, so we walk you through room to room, kind of what you guys are looking for, from light control, privacy, all of the different things that we'll walk through each room, and then select a few different samples or sample books, bring those in, and then kind of just pick some different fabrics. We do try to narrow it down so it's not too overwhelming for you. Most people find the process quite easy, even though it sounds overwhelming. But we do guide you to the right direction and hopefully find something that works for you. We usually are able to leave the quote in home that day as well. We usually book anywhere between 1 to 2 hours for a consultation. So
Sounds extremely efficient. I'm sure you've nailed that down over the years, right?
yeah.
Can you provide an overview of a few different products in your offering and what they're best suited for?
Yeah, so we start from anything from your basic faux wood blind all the way up to custom drapery, shutters, anything that's a little bit more a higher price group. It really depends if you're looking for light control again or privacy. Some people really like the idea of having something that's adjustable, so they would probably go to more of like a faux wood or a slatted blind. Some people just want it right open and out of the way, so that's when we would go to like a roller shade or a shade instead. But yeah, we've got again, we can layer it with custom drapery if people just want a bit of a soft panel look on the sides or full custom drapery blackout. Yeah, so we've got anything from, like I said, the basics all the way up to something that's going to be a little bit more luxurious.
Awesome. Can you explain the differences between products in terms of light control and privacy?
Yeah, so I mean, as far as like control and privacy, Ashley's got a picture up there right now that shows you from a sheer, and then you've got your percentages, which will be kind of more of a solar shade aspect. And then you can go into the room darkening aspects. If you're looking for a room darkening or blackout option, roller shade, honeycomb, or it's known as a cellular shade as well, or blackout drapery is going to be where you need to go as far as trying to get that room darkening aspect. The honeycomb and the roller shades are usually mounted within the window frame, so people always think they're going to get a full blackout when you do something like that, but you're going to get those little light gaps on the sides no matter what. So as soon as you put something inside your window frame, you're going to get those light gaps. Sometimes people forget about that. So if you're looking for a full light control option, usually floor to ceiling drapery is going to be your best bet. So I usually kind of go in and I say, how blackout do you need it? And then we'll kind of pick out options from there. If you're looking for something that's more of a sun control idea versus being light control, solar shades, so a 3% or a 10%, those are going to be based off of how much view you want versus how much sun protection you want. So the 3% is going to be a little bit more sun protection than a 10%, but you're not going to have as much view. So there's always pros and cons to every product you get, but the solar shades are going to be for your sun. And then as far as privacy goes, you're going to want something that you can't see through. So anything that you can see through, people can see back when the light changes at nighttime. So lots of people always say, I want to see through my blinds, but I don't want people to see back. But as soon as it's dark outside and light inside, that doesn't exist. So you have to go to something, usually two things, and that's where that layering comes in. So
That's interesting. There's a few things in there that I never thought of before. So first of all, the space on the side, the little bit of light that comes through makes absolute sense. But I can see how having a consultation with somebody really, there's so many questions that end up that you wouldn't even think about, right? Like the light at nighttime inside and stuff like that.
yeah.
So,
Rebecca, can I quickly ask, if you're looking to protect your furniture or floors, would something as low as a 3% light filtering have that effect? Because I know, if you don't have blinds or curtains up, sometimes over the years, you'll see kind of a light marking on the furniture or the floors. Is that, what's your recommendation there?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go to like a 10%. Going to something with a tighter weave would be a little bit more of that UV reduction. So it's almost like putting sunglasses on. If you've got a really good set of sunglasses, it kind of stops that UV and that heat, and that's what's going to affect the flooring in your furniture. It's not necessarily the light; it's going to be the UV, right? So a tighter weave is going to protect that your furniture a lot more. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Back to you, Connie.
Okay, sounds good. In all your years, you must have some favorites. What are your favorite kinds of window coverings and why?
It's a toss and turn all the time for me between form and function because things look really pretty, but you also have to stick to the function. I am a big fan of roller shades. They're super simple. There's no cords involved in them, so as far as replacing a clutch or a motor in a roller shade is going to be a lot easier than anything with cords, where you have to restring them and those kinds of things over time. Um, the simplisticness of them when they're down and then just having them right up and out of the way and getting your full open windows because I like having as much nature and naturalness coming in the home too. I love anything with texture. So natural rollers is big for me and layering them. You can do like a solar and a roller shade combination. So you can get a blackout but still get that fun, nice texture of a light filtering. And then I know that everybody was kind of going away from drapery for a while, but having a little bit of decorative panels always cozies up the space. So something light and flowy. That's definitely where I kind of like the layering aspect for it.
Yeah, I can see in the pictures the difference. It makes me think I need to start thinking about putting some draperies in my living room. It just adds that it finishes off the design, right? Like it finishes off the coziness.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was just in a customer's house the other day too, and they were tossing and turning between doing just a functional roller. But they had vaulted ceilings. It's a brand new home and it felt a little bit cold, like they needed something a little bit more. So we went to actually a smart drape, which is a kind of a sheer and a solid drape in it, but it looks like a drape. And so it really framed that space and made it feel a little bit more cozy. So
Interesting. What would be helpful for heat regulation and energy efficiency?
Heat regulation, I would go towards a cellular or a honeycomb shade. That honeycomb shape, it's essentially got a little pocket in it. So that's what basically traps anything before it enters your home. It becomes an insulator in front of your window. Um, they are the tightest fitting to the window too. So as far as gaps go and things like that, you're going to get, we measure the tightest size of your window. And then having that little gap on the side, their headrail and the shade itself is straight from top to bottom, so you don't get as much gap on those. Um, you can also get like a Hunter Douglas has what's called an Architella, and they have a cell within a cell, so you can get really energy efficient when it comes to doing a honeycomb. Um, if you're looking for more heat retention and stuff like that in the summertime, then that's where the solar shades come in. As soon as someone says I need something to protect my furniture, like Laura said, or just to stop that glare on the TV or computer screens, then I usually say a solar shade is gonna help that, and not feel as closed off too, because you can still get a bit of that view.
Cool. Can you tell us about modern technology in window coverings and what benefits do they bring?
Modern technology, so it is growing very, very fast.
Everywhere.
When I first started, pretty much nobody ever asked about motorization, and now pretty much every supplier has a smart home blind. Budget Blinds actually has their own brand, so even though we carry multiple different suppliers, we actually can go from one supplier to the next using the same home automation system. Um, so you can get a motorized blind, which is going to be just off of a remote, or a basic motor, which is going to have a little power wand attached to your window for hard to reach windows. And then you can go to the ones with automation. So essentially you just have to get a little hub, and that will connect right to, if you have your Google or your Alexa or those built-in automation systems in your home, then you can get the hub and that will actually connect right to your automation system within your home.
Can you elaborate? Because I think I see a Lutron
Yes.
app or things on your screen. And if I, for example, had Hunter Douglas blinds, could I modify them to make them applicable to use on my app?
It depends when you got your Hunter Douglas ones, if you can actually get a hub to work on your app. but we can look into that for you.
Ooh.
Um,
So
and the
break it down a little bit more, like the benefits of having the modernized, or one other thing, like can you set them on a schedule so the blinds open at a particular time so you could technically wake up to natural daylight?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So all of them are you've got an app on your phone that you connect to, and you can set it up as different settings. So if you want to wake up when or you want your blinds to go up with the sunset, they'll go, or sunrise, they'll go up with the sunrise. If you want them to go down when the sun sets, you can have them go down, and you set all the different scenes. And then you, like I said, you can use your Google and have them do it too. You can do it room to room. We do carry the Lutron, which I would say is one of the best automation as far as how quiet the window coverings are. And they've been doing, they started out with their dimmer switch, right? And they've been doing automation for so long that they've kind of just mastered all of their little quirks in it. But essentially they all kind of work the same as far as having that app on your phone. And if you're in Mexico and you want to have your blinds set, you can have them set or change them when you're not home. You can do that. So
Ooh. I was actually thinking about for here because all three of our hosts on this call are really health focused. And I know that Connie, Denise, and myself are really into, natural health and things. And one of the things that's I've read a lot about is waking naturally with our natural rhythm. And so it just really got me excited. That's the dorky side of me. And so I'll let Connie take the next question, but I was just like, ooh, could I rise with the, because sometimes I'll purposely leave the blind open so I kind of wake up with natural light. A little harder to do as we become fall time here for a short period of time. But that being said,
I'm with you, Laura. I'm with you for sure.
and you can have it
just too
set, let's say
excited.
instead of waking up with the sun, you could be, okay, I need to get up at 6 a.m. every morning. You can have it just open 20% and then it'll slowly let that light in, right? So that's that naturally waking up. That's a little bit nice instead of having that 4:30 a.m. wake up call too.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Rebeccah, I guess this changes depending on obviously what kind of blinds you have and technology, but what sort of maintenance do window coverings typically require?
They are all pretty much the same. You just have to make sure you're dusting them regularly. Some of them will be a little bit more maintenance than others. So anything that's horizontal, so a blind or a shutter, you're gonna need to dust them more often because they're gonna collect a lot more dust. Those ones you can also use a damp cloth because they are a hard material that can have moisture on them, so you can wipe them down with a damp cloth. Shades like roller shades or anything fabric oriented, just vacuum them off with like a little bristle head is the easiest way to kind of do that. They are all fabric, so if you do get a stain on them, you can spot clean them. Or otherwise, if they're getting really gross, you can always get in a professional company that can do an ultrasonic clean on them as well and clean them. The honeycombs are the ones that people mostly ask about because they don't look like fabric, even though they are. Drapes, we do have one supplier that does offer polyester cotton drapes, and they are technically all machine washable, but as soon as you add that liner to them, they need to be dry cleaned because they shrink differently. So drapery, you're going to usually just take them down and dry clean them.
I asked on how to clean my blinds because in Mexico there's dust and particles at our second house, and the guy said to just shake them out. I thought that was kind of interesting because
that's fair.
here in Nanaimo, you could go to a company like Classic Clean. They basically have on their sign drape cleaning.
Yeah.
And it didn't really occur to me, like I have never cleaned my blinds in 6 years, but literally he just said I could shake them out, take them off, shake them out, put them back on. And I thought, kind of seems very simplistic, but I guess yet effective.
100%. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you do need a flathead screwdriver to pop them off, a couple different styles, but totally makes sense. Yeah, if you're able to pop them down and just shake them out, that makes sense to me.
Well, and sometimes we overthink things. So
Totally.
but I think the importance of actually recognizing that they are something that does require cleaning. And I mean, like Connie said, what type of maintenance is required as we go to these electronic blinds or things that are more complex? Obviously, batteries need to be replaced. But if there's any, like, like, does Lutron need to have a software update done? Like, those are all things that always kind of occur to my, to my brain once I'm going more technical into what have been fundamentally very basic products, like blinds for years functioned. You just opened, closed, they had the little wheel thing. That was all you had to do until they outlawed cords.
Yeah.
This is something I have kind of conversations with homeowners when they have blinds in a home and they're like, oh, those are ugly. And sometimes I say to people now, I say, well, just so you know, new blinds are very different. So I know that's a question I'm sure we'll talk about today, but like they'll look at a blind that might be an up down with a cord in a house and they'll go, oh, that's not the color I would pick. And you're like, well, before you rip that blind out and throw it in the garbage, maybe a consultation is a good starting place.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you mentioned motorized for maintenance and window coverings, and most motorized blinds are rechargeable now. So just a charge once a year, about once a year is usually what those need for about 8 hours. Lots of people forget that the remote also has a battery. So even though your blinds maybe aren't working and you've charged them up, sometimes your battery's dead in your remote. So that's another part of the maintenance side with that. As far as I know, there's no updates that you need to do. The app might need to be updated, but your blinds should work with your system that you have as far as it needs to be. So
That's awesome. That's super cool. Who
Yeah.
knew the world of blinds could be so technical?
Yeah, I never had that, or that they would last a year for a charge.
yeah, Lutrons last anywhere between 3 to 5 years. So that's
Wow,
yeah.
that's incredible. Okay.
Yeah, so most of the other suppliers are anywhere between 12 to 15 months.
That's lots. All right. Don't need to think about it very often, which is
Nope.
exactly what blinds should be, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Doing their function. Are there any rules that homeowners need to know when it comes to window coverings? There's some interesting.
Yeah, as far as Laura actually already mentioned, just a few, or I would say about 3 years ago now, Health Canada's regulations have changed completely. So any cords, whether it's a continuous loop beaded chain, like that little boy has in his hands now, or a pull cord, or like the top down, bottom up have those cords that run through, any exposed cords that essentially could get a little kid's head in, have now been outlawed. So they had to readjust everything. So a lot of the times I go into someone's house and they're expecting something and I have to say, well, you can't get that anymore. So it's been a huge change on the industry for sure. They have come up with a lot of other options now. So the top down, bottom up has recently come back. And instead of that cord running through it, it is a band. So it's about a eighth of an inch, quarter-inch band that runs through the top of the blind instead. Yeah, so and otherwise it's going to be most things are cordless. So you're going to be lifting and up and down. If you can't reach the tops of your windows, that's where that motorization comes in. It does jump up in price, so there is an option in between that's called a power wand. And that can allow somebody who needs to be able to reach it from the bottom of the window still be able to move it without that high price point. There are a couple continuous loop options, but they are all covered with like a shrouding now. So they're a little bit more finicky to use, but it's not ideal. And it's definitely a big change on the industry when it comes to window coverings, but it's reality. So we just got to work with it and flow with it and go from there.
Do you find that maybe like the up down was so popular for so long? Do you find now if you have to have, like, is it thicker? Is it the string or the band that's in it? So do you find you sell less of those now because of how it looks, or does it still function well?
It still functions really well. We've had a couple gimmicky ones along the way, but we finally have one that functions pretty much the exact same as the other one. And once I show people the band, they're so stuck on having that top down, bottom up already that there's no other product that I could show them that works that way.
Right.
So the band isn't even a thought in their brain after that.
I guess there's some situations where, I mean, I've been through homes many times where you're really trying to hide, maybe give yourself some privacy, but from here, because you're in a, you know, a fishbowl or something, but you still want to see the sky and the light all day. So there's probably not too much of an option other than an up down, right?
Yeah, I mean there is the like I try to tell people that you could do like a dual solar roller shade where I mean the one behind me actually is that where
Oh,
you can still see through that one, so it gives you that privacy during the day that people are essentially wanting, and then they just pull the other one down at nighttime to give them that
right.
full privacy. So there is alternatives if the bands really do bug you. But yeah, when people like the top down bottom up, it's really hard to change their minds on that, so we show them all the options and then they kind of can decide from there.
So I was thinking about when I'm working with buyers, sometimes, for example, if the room, like say there's a bedroom and it faces someone's side yard, what a great thought in advance to mitigate a rejection from a buyer to have proper window coverings in that room. So say, for example, it's the primary bedroom, which you of course want privacy in, but yet you want natural light. But that room happens to now face, maybe the lot next to you was developed, maybe a new building was built. And so I think it's really something for our future home sellers to consider, that kind of looking at how putting on their eyeglasses as if they're a future home buyer when they're preparing, you know, say 3 months, 6 months out to sell their homes. They first of all get the use and enjoyment of a beautiful new blind, but they also can kind of mitigate a potential rejection in advance. And so, um, how is there any, like, I guess there's probably no facts behind it, but I mean, what's the typical timeline in which you come in to measure for blinds and them actually getting their blinds installed?
Yeah, right now we're sitting anywhere. I mean, every product is different and every supplier is different, but anywhere between about 4 to 8 weeks for custom window coverings. So, um, depending when you pull the trigger and then get it started. Sometimes shutters can take a little bit longer because they're like cabinetry in your windows. So you need something that's going to um, fit exactly like cabinetry, and you might have to go back and forth with the supplier a few times, get some drawings and make sure it's all going to fit and function. So it might take a little bit longer to get it to actually get in production. Um, and then there's the actual transportation of getting it to the island. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer and there's delays there. But I would say you're pretty safe around the 4 to 8 weeks.
Okay, well, Connie, that leads us to the perfect next question, which this slide speaks perfectly to. Thank you, Ashley. These slides are super informative.
Yeah. Any specific timeline, like as far as you've got the time it takes the project, but are there different times of the year that maybe it's easier to get supplies or something like that?
Um, I mean, as far as sales in general, things go through waves, right? So sometimes a big sale comes on and a whole bunch of people buy, so that's going to put us in a little bit of backlog to get caught up. But then going into, let's say, for example, August, where people are on holidays a lot more or finishing off their camping and stuff before they come back, nobody's really home. Um, it's going to be a little bit slower that month, so you can probably get a quicker lead time going through August kind of idea as well.
Right. Right.
Can we
So
break it down a little bit more too? Like, so say you're renovating or you purchased a new build or you're building a new home. When should that client call you? Like, of course, the windows should be framed, the windows should be installed and framed, but how much in advance can they order? What happens if they order in advance? Will you store them? I remember like, of course you want to move into your new home and you want your blinds there to sleep because, when you do, say, for example, prefab construction or newer construction, or you're buying a home and you go and you have, say, 2 months between when you bought the home after subject removal and when you get the home, and for example, you already want new blinds ordered for your new home. When is that perfect sweet spot? And kind of break down on the categories of renovation. When should they have you come on site? New builds, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially we can quote it for you at any time. So if you want to get everything completely ready before we can go into measure, you can come to our showroom, we can pick out stuff, we can work off of floor plans, get you guys that pricing and that specific thing. So all we have to do is go and measure once the casings are in, and then do it that way. Um, if someone moves in prior to us having the blinds ready, we can offer them temporary shades. So they're just a paper pleated shade that we can just pop up in the windows. And we'll offer them for any of the privacy windows, complimentary. We don't charge for those. Um, if they're not ready for their blinds, the same thing. We'll hold them for you guys until you guys are ready, as long as that communication's there. We'll hold them in our warehouse and have them give us a call when they are ready to get installed.
From a design perspective, does the paint have to have its final coat on before you quote blinds? In most cases, I'm just thinking of, timelines. Like, say, for example, you're buying a new pre-built condo and they're going to have everything ready. And so 3 weeks before you're ready to register or sign paperwork, like what are the kind of the stages in which the best time it is to have you come? Like, I remember when I was building a home, the blinds were fairly far in the process. Like, they were fairly far towards the end. But at the time, that I think it was 4 weeks to get the blinds kind of bought and installed, it seemed rather quick to me. But I did remember thinking, okay, I have to have the paint done at least,
Yeah, I mean that's truly based off of the customer. If they need to, as long as the casings are in the windows, we can get blinds for you. But if the customer needs a little bit more visual, like sometimes if they're going into more drapery, I say, you know what, let's get all of your functional blinds done, and then we'll hit the drapery as something that's a little bit more kind of tying the space together afterwards. Um, I think that if like that's what we're here for, is to try and help you guys see the full design and get you excited about what you're buying. And if you're not sure about it, I mean, all of us do have a design background of some sort, so we can help you with colors and things like that. But if you're that person that really needs that visual, if the paint's not on the walls, then bring a paint swatch. We can work with all those materials and kind of pull it all together for you.
I know for sure that I'm a very visual person and I struggle, virtually buying something. So I have to go touch, feel, see. I did have to use the paint swap, like, this is the color I want. This is how it's going to look. Where are some stumbling points where buyers will look to you and say, I don't know what type of window coverings to put on my slider door, or I have a dog, or I have little kids? Where are some stumbling points before we move on to the next question that, your expertise might come into place?
Yeah, I think if someone is stumbling and they don't know, I usually go back to the function question first. Be like, well, what are you trying to achieve? Are you needing it for light or privacy? Or are you specifically just wanting it to look good? So we can kind of work off of that. And then I kind of say, well, are you looking for texture or pattern, or do you want it to just disappear? And then I can kind of try and pull samples from there. As soon as they say they have a dog, I'm like, okay, it needs to be kind of machine washable, or something easy to clean, those kinds of things. So any questions like that, or like I said, if I start to walk through their homes too, I can kind of get a sense of what they are as a person or what they have, and kind of pull off of those things as well. I know that's why our consultations are so long, is because we do tend to ask a lot of questions to make sure we don't make a mistake that you guys are not happy with your final product.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's awesome. Back to you, Connie.
Oh, this is the interesting question. What budget should homeowners plan for?
So this is one of the hardest questions. And it's usually the one that I can never really answer because it can range so broad. Like I kind of mentioned, we can do a basic faux wood that may cost you $150, or we can go up to drapery, which might cost you a couple $1,000s on one window. So there's not necessarily a budget that we can kind of base it off of. But I usually say, if we're comfortable asking, we can say, well, what budget do you have in mind? And that is a hard question that customers don't always like to answer. But the reason being is we can use that as far as making sure we're finding a product within their budget. So that's what budget blinds, that's where our name came from, is a style and service for every budget. So we kind of try to work within your budget to find you something that's going to actually make sense for you and function for you. If that customer doesn't want to tell me that budget, that's okay. We can still kind of guide them in that direction. And sometimes I say, well, do you want to see something really luxurious, or do you want to see something that's going to just do the deed and get it done, and that's all you need, kind of thing. So like I said, it's really hard question to answer. So it's just it's really trying to kind of get to know your customer and see where they need to be and what makes them comfortable.
So in other words, the answer is there's pretty much a blind for every budget, like you said.
Correct.
What is the warranty for window coverings?
So budget blinds warranty is the best in the industry. We have a lot of different alliance suppliers. And as you can see on the slide that Ashley is showing, it gives us pretty much all of our suppliers have our no questions asked warranty. So that's the biggest thing we like to let people know is there is comparable products from other retailers, but they will not have our no questions asked warranty. And that literally means you spill red wine on it, your dog chews it, anything happens to the blind, we replace each blind once with no questions asked. That most of them are the 5 years. And then they all have a limited lifetime warranty, which covers more your mechanics and things like that within the headrail. Cord warranties all vary, again, depending supplier to supplier. Lutron has 8 years on for their limited lifetime or limited warranty, so they don't have the limited lifetime warranty. But yeah, the biggest thing we try to promote is our no questions asked warranty.
I can vouch that my lovely golden retriever Mo, in my last house, I had a beautiful blind from your company on the door for privacy because I needed her to not bark at every single dog walking down the street. And she decided to jump up on it, and it got torn. And I had a replacement within 30 days and literally no questions asked. So I luckily didn't have to replace it more than once. But
you got a bad girl.
Oh, poor puppy. But yeah, totally right. But literally, it's true. It works. So yeah, no, I love it when a company stands behind their product. It really means a lot.
And I mean, on top of that too, like a lot of other retailers for window coverings, you have to call a 1-800 number and do the work to get your window coverings replaced as well. Whereas you just call our office. We've got a whole staff in the office that actually does all the legwork for you. So sometimes you do have to wait to hear from us, but that's because we're doing the legwork for you to get it fixed and replaced for you.
So extreme ownership and VIP service sounds pretty darn good.
No kidding. Yeah. So Rebecca, what tips do you have for homeowners who plan to show and sell their homes? Because yes, we are realtors, so we got to ask you this.
Yeah, energy efficiency window coverings honeycombs in general are probably one of the most functional window coverings. So if someone's looking to sell their house for resale, I can vouch that 90% of the people are going to like a honeycomb shade. It's going to function exactly the way they want it to. And I have never had someone come into the office and say they need to replace their honeycombs because they don't like them. It's usually because they're not working and they're 20 years old, kind of thing. So I think that's a good resale if someone's looking to put something in. Oh, what else? Oh,
What about consistent colors? You know, like you're looking at it all flowing together, and you've got maybe blinds that might be kind of out of fashion, out of style, or they just don't, there's no flow to them. You know,
yeah, I do
maybe
agree to
they,
that
you know,
for
like
sure.
maybe you've mix matched over the eras because you've furnished one part of you just updated one part of your house, but say for example, the main floor has one blind, but they didn't have that same blind when you went to upgrade the next floor. And there's no continuity or flow, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And trying not to focus on putting your own personality into it, which is kind of, I think what you're saying is working from one room. They did it at one point and then going to the next. So trying to focus on that flow going throughout the home. It's the kind of the same as the first thing I think one of the things that you guys consider is paint in a house too. If they've got red walls, usually painting them neutral is going to be an easier slate for people's eyes to understand. So same thing with the window coverings is kind of keeping that continuous. Matching the trim is usually the safest way to kind of go with it because your trim is the least likely to change. So I know that's usually white, but that's going to be the least likely to change over time. So keeping things continuous that way. And yeah, like Laura said, not changing style from one style to the next, unless it's again a function thing that you have to. Yeah, keeping it consistent for sure.
Well,
Like,
and now that you say that, I'm sure if we all look behind us at our windows, mine do actually match my trim. So good job. Good advice. It
well, I
works.
think it's also because you probably, I mean, if you have a very neutral type of blind, then you can change your furniture and it doesn't matter, right? So other things in your room can change, but the blinds will still work.
For sure. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing is window coverings, as much as they can be style and beautiful, they are for function. So finding something that's going to be functional is really important for sure. And buyers do love having that natural light. So choose something that allows you to see that and showcase that as well.
So
Perfect.
this brings us to our Q&A session. So if anybody who's attended tonight has a question for Rebeccah, please either put it in the chat or unmute and let us know, and we'll get that question answered. I've been furiously writing some questions, so I'm going to jump in. So the one thing is the blinds inside the glass in a patio door.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on those? I talk to some people and they absolutely love them. Other people say, oh my God, don't ever do that.
I think we do carry them. So we will, if someone wants something that's low maintenance, they don't have to clean, things like that. We do offer they're called ODLs. They they are functional. My personal opinion on them is I don't necessarily love the look of them. Um, they can be slightly finicky as far as when you move them up and down and understanding how to use them. But once you know how to use them, they're so easy maintenance because you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to clean them. You don't have to do anything. They're there and they're doing what they need to do. They're not good for room darkening. They're strictly good for privacy.
Yeah, I think what I like about them is we had a door with a glass panel in it that opened to our back deck, and it had a blind on the outside of it. And every time you open that door, the wind would catch it, the wind would bang the blind around. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know there's a better way. So to me, the function of it is great, but some people don't like them because they say once the blind doesn't work anymore, the whole door is useless.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, with us, they do have a warranty for them as well. So if it doesn't work, it kind of is based off of different time lengths of
Yeah.
it not working. But yeah, they do have some sort of warranty as well. But yeah, if you don't want it banging around, the only other thing that I could offer on a door is one of our suppliers do magnet hold downs on their
Oh,
roller shade.
magnet. That's a great
Yeah, so
idea.
at least it's not stuck and it's not banging.
Yeah.
But it allows you to roll it up out of the way, and then you can have the magnets that hold it right in place at the bottom.
Oh, that's fabulous. Going back to the last question that we had for you, Ash or Rebecca, the tips for people who are thinking of selling their homes. One of the things that stands out in my mind when I'm showing homes, and it's a lovely home, everything is beautiful, but they bought the blinds when they purchased the home in 1998, and they're mini blinds. And they may not be bad colors, but they're the mini blinds. And nobody wants the mini blinds anymore. And everybody talks about the window coverings. And if it's a house with a lot of windows, they automatically start thinking, okay, well, that's going to be a big ticket item. And it can be a deterrent
For
having
sure.
that. So I do think window coverings play a big part in resale. And I think, it could be an expensive thing to change, but I'm sure that you would have affordable options just to update the look, in a budget for someone who is listing to sell.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, the mini blinds aren't even in the Health Canada regulations anymore anyway. So
Yes, you're right.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is definitely one of those things that I find a lot of people don't look at changing because they don't consider them until the next person buys and they can't stand their blinds in their house, and now they are looking at trying to replace them at a low cost.
yeah.
So yeah, we've got if you're just looking for something that's gonna look a little bit cleaner, and just kind of stay down and you like the tilting option, the faux wood is going to be a good builder grade price point that can kind of give you that same kind of tilting option because they may have loved them at the time, right? Um, Otherwise, going up to a honeycomb shade, it's not that much more to do it. So sometimes just kind of doing it, it will benefit you in the end for sure, I think.
Absolutely, and it'll modernize the home too. The dated blinds can really, it's like old dusty curtains,
Yeah.
Everybody thinks, okay, well, the first thing I'm doing when I get the keys.
Oh, we're
You happen to mute
unmuted here.
yourself. I know. Well, sometimes you're better off to take those window coverings down and have nothing versus have something. So especially if those window coverings are broken or in a state of disrepair and the seller doesn't have the budget. I know sometimes on rental properties, I've just removed the blinds, prior to doing any paint touch-ups, and just said, like, look, you're seeing this home, it doesn't have a blind on it. At least you're seeing the home with lots of natural light.
Right.
So
Laura, I
Denise-
was,
Canvas.
Laura, I was just going to say too, another one of the things that I've even heard Rebecca talk about is when realtors come in, do the videos if you're planning on selling your home. A lot of people will drive by the home just to get that sneak peek and see what they're kind of getting into before they book that walkthrough. And if you have a window covering in there that you think may look fine from the inside, from the outside, if those slats are broken, if they haven't been washed in 15 years, that instant curb appeal is gone. So window coverings really are one of the only things internally in your home that you could spend that little bit of money on, invest, and they will update the curb appeal at the same time. And just having that extra added for the listing too, a lot of our clients give great feedback on that their videos and pictures ended up going well because they forgot about the window coverings on the outside and what that draws in for the clients as well. So I think a lot of people forget about that too.
Well, and from a photography standpoint, sometimes you need to have the blinds drawn and tilted down so that there's not glare in the photo. So every photographer does it slightly different. But once you might overlook that fact when you're getting prepared, ready, and then you pull down the blind, you're like, oh, that's not as good as I was hoping for. Or, you go to pull the curtain open or closed, and it's got a tear down it. And you're like, ooh, so modifying, how are we doing this? So yeah, I do carry a set of curtains in my staging bucket on purpose for that reason, but they're just simple things, right? You know, but good window coverings to a trained eye, and especially Denise, you as a luxury specialist on Vancouver Island with EXP, it's really super key because in the luxury market, buyers have high expectations as to what they're getting for the price point. And in our current market on Vancouver Island, in my opinion, buyers are looking for the best bang, the complete package, and window coverings are one of those factors. I do have a quick question for Rebeccah because we've kind of skipped over it. Vancouver Island, a lot of homeowners really love skylights. Is there a product or a blind or some option that we can kind of, while we love the natural light about skylights, I think there's also quite a bit of heat transfer and options in a skylight. What does Budget Blinds offer some options for that?
Yeah, we used to have more options, but after the Health Canada regulations, it's definitely gone a little bit on the more narrow side of it. But we do offer window film, like a tinted window film, which does help reduce the heat inside the home quite a bit. One of your customers, clients, gave me his actual how much it actually reduced it in his apartment building, which was amazing because I've never actually gotten the feedback as well as that. So that was great. And then we've got the honeycombs, which I've got one supplier that will motorize it. Otherwise they're manual. And then we also do a shutter up there. So shutters can be that adjustable louvers up in the skylights as well.
Mhm. So just take a pause here. Did we have any questions? We've been kind of monopolizing the Q&A.
I have a question.
Oh, perfect, James. Come on
Are-
down.
How is everybody, by the way?
Good.
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Are the window
Good.
coverings fireproof?
You can get fire rated window coverings. So there are some honeycombs that you can get fire rated as well as drapery. So just depending on the space and what you're trying to achieve, there is fire rated options. Yes.
Oh, okay. I just
Great
want to know.
question.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much.
I guess that's also something from an insurance standpoint. So say, for example, you spent 10 or 20,000 on window coverings. I have no idea what people are typically spending. I only have very few windows in my small rancher. And so, but even then, a percentage spent, I think it would be important to tell your home insurance company, by the way, I do have high-end blinds in my home to replace those, you know, unless you kept the receipt or made a video. I do have, you know, rather high-end homes. I want to make sure my policy covers that, like James says, in case of an accident or, you know, whatever that case is, you know.
Sure, that's a good point, Laura. Thank you very much, because I think there is in my insurance policy something that references that. So I'll check it out and make sure, just
Yeah,
in case.
because maybe what I had paid for my blinds, as we know, inflation is a real thing. It's a favorite topic of many of ours these days, from our, you know, previous $6 coffees to $8 or $9 lattes.
Right.
Yeah, to replace those same blinds today, there's definitely an increased cost from what they would have cost me 7 years ago when I built to now.
Mhm.
Well, that's true. Everything's gone that way though. But yeah, that's a good point to make, and I thank you very much for that, because that's something I can use to
And if you purchase
inquire
from
on.
us too, we will keep your guys' information on file. We have everything electronically, so we have a lot of your old orders on file, and we do it all via email. So you won't actually lose your invoice if you keep your emails too. So
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it's another insurance thing that I've just learned. Thanks very much for that. That's great.
Rebecca, where?
I was just gonna add to that and say, like, a lot of our clients are repeat clients who have gone through a flood, who have gone through a fire, who have gone through, I mean, sometimes we don't even think about a small fire in the kitchen that could affect the window coverings in the living room. So when they contact us, we're able to give the original invoice, which has all of the original brand and the function of the blind and those products. And then we can re-quote on that. And that's the quote that will be sent to the adjusters, because if they just pay out on what you had bought from the blinds, you're not going to be getting the same blinds if it's a 10-year price difference. So
Right.
a lot of the reps have done that before. So we'll give a new updated quote on what you had originally bought. They give it to the adjuster, and then we get the go ahead to push the order through. So there's ways to do it that are comparable, and a lot of insurance companies ask for the updated one, which is nice.
Well, that's nice to know, because I do have just about every invoice for everything in the house. It's a new build. So I still have those on hand, but you never know, something can happen. At least now I've got another alternative that I can use in regards to an accident or something that I happen to lose those. So yes, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that.
I have
Um,
one last quick question for you, Rebecca. Window film. Does Budget Blinds do window film?
Yeah, we do offer window film. We actually do also work with a local supplier in Courtney that does a lot of our window film for us as well. So they've done some training with us. So we have actually been trained on what their products are and what they offer. So we definitely have connections on those directions. Yeah.
So my question with the window film, I like not having drapery or blinds. I only put them in the bedroom because I like to look outside. But I do have some windows that face south, and I've been considering putting window film on them just for some daytime privacy. But I also have a lot of houseplants. Is it going to block out my the light for my plants? Because I know it has a bit of a solar film to it. Do you know?
Yeah, so that's the UV that it protects from, right? So that's that heat and that stuff that your plants might need. So
Mhm.
if you don't want it permanently on those windows, then it might be better to consider a solar shade where it doesn't actually have to be down all the time. So you can have your plants get a little bit more daylight during the day, and then close them just when that sun hits really harshly for those couple hours.
Are there any other downsides to window film? I know a lot of people do like them. I had some clients do a bunch of windows earlier this year with window film.
Honestly, there's not a lot of downsides that I can see. Again, it's almost like putting Polaroid sunglasses on. It almost makes your image feel cleaner and fresher with them, with protecting that UV in your furniture and getting those harsh UVs to break down your home. So in that sense, I think window film really hits the mark. It can reduce a little bit of that glare, which some people really want to bask in that sunshine. So other
Yeah.
than that, I think solar film really does hit what it needs to when it comes to that light.
Well, wow, I can't believe what an informative session, and great job on the slides, Ashley.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Ashley.
Rebecca, and thank you, Ashley, for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us tonight and educate us on budget blinds in the world of blinds and drapery. That
Denise,
was
before
fascinating.
we wrap up, where can we find your showroom, Rebecca? If someone
Yes.
want to have a home consult.
Yeah, so we have one in Ladysmith. It's on High Street, right across from that coffee shop right there. I can't remember what the name is. And the Fox and Hound is the pub right next to us. So we have a huge showroom right up in Ladysmith there. And we also have one up in Courtney. That's the one I'm sitting in right now. So two beautiful showrooms where you can touch, feel, and play with actual samples. Otherwise, like the free in-home consultation, we have pretty much everything in our vans. So if you book that consultation, we can bring it all to you.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Well, thank you once again, ladies, for joining us this evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. I hope that everybody can join us next month. And our topic next month on November 6th at 6 p.m. is navigating the reno process from planning to completion. And we're going to have, she is just an amazing interior designer, join us and talk about the process and keeping it on track and staying within budget. So I hope everybody can join us and have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for stopping by.
Thank you.
Good night.